Good morning, everyone. It is a beautiful day here in the Southeast. However, we have had some weather, and a friend of mine up in Savannah had tornadoes flow through that he had to clean up from. I know they've had some big weather up in New York, but of course, that is why I moved out of New York. What I wanted to do is return to the question about how we experience reality, and it was left over from a few videos ago. The question is this: how can we reconcile the idea that what we're made up of does not have the same qualities as what we experience in our everyday lives? Well, the answer may be that the observer effect that we've spoken about many times is doing it. It's assembling the particles around you, me, everyone, everything, which then behave differently as a result of our thoughts. So just as the photons behave to the observer effect for the scientists doing those early experiments, the particles around us, you, me, may also behave to our observer. So even though the particles blink in and out and make up molecules with the space between their parts as vast as solar systems, your observer effect may be responding to the thoughts you think. It's somehow ordering them for your reality. It is assembling them in order for you to experience. Recent studies actually support this theory by revealing that whatever our subconscious is also makes decisions about us 7 seconds before someone is even aware of the decision. Researchers monitoring the micro patterns of activity in the brain in what's called the front polar cortex were able to predict which choice a human subject would choose 7 seconds before the person was even aware of their own decision. Well, while this was somewhat able to be explained by the way the eye is constructed, with the cortex being a sort of prediction engine, scientists have not yet agreed on how this works. One explanation is that what researchers are calling the subconscious is the same as the observer effect, and I agree with that. So when the observer effect begins to emanate a wave function, this thought becomes activity on the prefrontal cortex, also called the frontal lobe. This would make the frontal lobe a sort of movie screen for the observer. Then anything that shows up there, probably seen as an image to us, would be broadcast throughout and outside the body, first as a thought and then as a wave function that assembles mass, matter, and reality. So apply this to our athletes from a prior video, and also to the baseball player who begins to swing when the ball is about halfway to home plate. He or she may also be trying to figure out where and when the pitch will cross the plate. They may also make a minor correction in the last few tenths of a second. And so imagine the observer effect as emanating thoughts which then appear on the frontal lobe as an image of hitting that pitch. But instead of the batter appearing to know the future, the batter is actually creating it. So what happens, though, when the batter begins consciously thinking about hitting the ball? As Yogi Berra once said, you can't think and hit at the same time. So what happens is that the part of the batter's brain responsible for rational thought is now weighing the rationality of what the batter is about to do. Should I swing high? Should I swing inside? This would introduce what I call the dual thinking of right versus wrong and good versus bad, all of which can easily undo the great swing that the batter was in the process of making when only observer effect was in charge. It's as if the act of consciously thinking takes us out of the state where the observer effect is effortlessly responding to feelings. This then puts us in a place that's no longer in the present and no longer about experiencing feelings. I once heard someone say, don't think, do. Thinking creates problems, while doing creates experiences. Now, had our batter just done that, they probably would have hit it out of the park. By thinking about what he was doing, though, the awareness of the batter changed from one of experiencing to one of consciously thinking. His awareness changed its state, like a quantum particle changing from one state to another, as we talked about in a prior video. Remember the last time you fell in love? The world was a joy to experience, and beauty was everywhere. For me, effortlessness was my nature, and I couldn't conceive of anything bad happening. And that was while I was in that state. I felt as light as a feather and as though I was walking on air. I'm sure you have too. Now think of a relationship that's ended, one that's over. I have felt emotions like that of sadness, loss, and loneliness, and bitterness, even anger. And nothing in my world was right. I struggled to get through the day, and I felt burdened and heavy. And I'm sure many of you have also. This sounds a lot like our thermometer, doesn't it? You haven't changed, but something has changed in your awareness. So I think that, similar to quantum particles and examples of light, our states change. Just like mercury in the glass tube, the changes of state can also be thought of as moving along a continuum of conscious thinking versus being in the now. Here, take a look at this diagram. Remember our simple pendulum? It goes from one time-bound and solid movement while it's moving through its arc, which we experience as the material world, to the infinite, indefinite, and non-material movement when it's at rest due to quantum indeterminacy. Take a look at this diagram now. Do we ever really experience the infinite, indefinite, and non-material as humans? What could be a way that we would even describe it? Well, going back to the examples and other videos of athletes in the zone and the regular people doing extraordinary things, and the phrase, the now moment in popular literature, these all sound a lot like the not solid, no time place at the far right of the continuum, the place where we humans seem to be able to transcend matter and time. I've put it in a diagram and it looks like this. This would suggest that the now is the same as the non-material state of what scientists call quantum indeterminacy, where pretty much anything can happen at any time. The now for humans might be our own direct experience of the non-material world of quantumness. So with that thought, I'll leave you to wonder, and here's to being in the now.